Honourable Member Ms. Gail Texiera, Opposition Chief Whip, will move the following motion. Mr. Texiera, you may proceed.
Elderly statesman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On January 5th, 2016, I tabled a motion in compliance with the VAT Act, Section 98, and Standing Order 70, Clauses 1 and 2, calling for the annulment.
I remember, Mr. Texiera, you have begun to address the House on your motion.
That's normal procedure, isn't it?
I'm asking the Honourable Member a question. I know she will tell me yes or no.
Yes, sir. It's normally
Thank
what
you.
we do.
Please proceed.
Thank you, sir. There is for the members of the House, there's a motion in my name, and I will now begin to move my motion.
Very good.
January the 5th, 2016, I tabled a motion in compliance with VAT Act, Section 98 and Standing Order 70, Clauses 1 and 2, calling for the annulment of the VAT amendment to schedules in the Order number 18 of 2016. This was approved by the Speaker with an amendment and circulated to the House at the January 6th sitting. This you would have in your possession, members of Parliament. The motion would have matured for debate on January 17th. Due to the Standing Order 70, the motion would expire at the 40th day on the order paper, 40th day of the order number 18 being tabled in the House. As advised by the clerk, the order would have, our motion would have expired on January 28th, and the order would come into effect February 1st, tomorrow's date. Attempts were made by me with the Government Chief Whip on January 6th to agree on the date for the next sitting, which the clerk advised was an opposition or private member's day, including writing the Chief Whip and raising with the Speaker twice during the sitting. However, I had no success. At the end of the sitting, when the PM was moving the adjournment, I rose and proposed an amendment to meet on January the 26th or 27th, and gave the reasons concerning the annulment motion in keeping with the VAT Act, the Standing Orders, and the Interpretation of General Clauses Act to be heard prior to its expiration. This was unsuccessful, and the Speaker offered to advise on the way forward so that such a motion would be heard. On January 19th, I wrote a letter to the Speaker appealing to him to call a special extraordinary sitting to allow the motion to be heard, as provided for in the Standing Order. I proposed January 26th or 27th to discuss this one item in order to allow the motion in compliance with the VAT Act, Section 98, which was properly before the House to be debated. On January 23rd, I was advised that the motion in my name would be allowed to be debated on January the 30th, but after I had agreed to it being amended, as the annulment motion would expire. We acceded, and this explains why you have in front of you, on the order paper, notice paper number 82 of January 6th, and the amended motion notice paper number 82. So today we're debating the amended motion. This issue, sir, before the House is at such magnitude that we must debate the actual order number 18, and what it will do to the people, all sectors of the economy, in a time with a declining economy and certain sectors being threatened with absolute devastation. And we hope at this nth hour, with less than 24 hours left, that the government will reconsider its reckless decisions to remove essential items.
Honourable Member, Mr. Texiera, you are debating the item which is before us.
Yes, sir.
Restoration of zero-rated items on the value-added tax.
Yes,
It is
sir.
not a matter which is already before the House and has already passed the time for this debate.
No, sir. The order will expire tomorrow.
Honourable Member,
The motion in our name has expired.
I will
But
not
we're now
allow you-
debating the amended motion.
Honourable Member, I will not allow you, so to speak, under the table in disregard of the understandings which would have emerged from what occurs there for you to pretend that it is something else.
I appreciate.
I am
sir,
very
don't
clear
understand
about
what
this,
you're
and
saying.
I will not allow you to do it.
You will not allow me to speak, sir?
I allow you to speak on the motion before you,
I am speaking on the motion.
but not on the motion before the House, not on the matter before the House, which has already been settled.
I'm afraid I'm a bit lost, sir. Could you please tell me what matter was settled before the House?
What's that?
I'm dealing with a motion number 82 to do with the reversal of the zero-rated items in Order 18 of 2016 that has not been debated because it requires a negative resolution to be debated. By bringing this motion, we are debating the issue,
Honourable Member,
which is in Order 18.
if you are attempting to raise and debate here a motion which has already, so to speak, is already before the House and is only waiting its effective, its operational date of 1st of February, then I must tell you I won't allow it.
Mr.
If you are
Speaker,
debating...
we are not
Honourable Member,
debating Order number 18. There's no motion on Order number 18 because it cannot be before the House because it requires a negative resolution. There was no affirmative motion on Order 18. That is why we brought a motion to debate it, according to the VAT Act and according to the standing order, sir. This matter was never resolved in this House because it was never before this House.
Honourable
Because
Member,
Order number 18 requires a negative resolution, and the annulment motion was not, what do you call, accommodated.
Honourable Member, so you are seeking to have it accommodated now?
Sir, you approved the motion amended, sir.
I
I have a
approved.
letter from you approving the amendments to this motion to allow me to debate it.
It's not a letter to approve this motion. Honourable Member, you have a different motion before the House.
Sir.
Anything else?
Sir, no, I'm serious.
You were
Could we
saying
look
no.
at notice paper number 82? Notice paper number 82 is headed up amended. And this is what is circulated, sir, in my name. And this is what is on the order paper, sir. Sir, the amended motion as advised by
That's a sailor.
the Parliament Office has been circulated with the words amended at the top. The order paper, which is before us today, encompasses and reproduces the amended motion, which is the same as what was circulated. And it's on the order paper today, sir. And that is
It's
what
an
I'm trying to
amended-
speak on, sir.
Honourable Member, I just want to be clear that what you are not seeking to do and what we are not doing here is seeking to have a debate on an item, on a matter which is already the law.
No, sir, it's not the law as
You're
yet
not-
until February the 1st, sir. And I can show, the VAT Act says February the 1st,
Honourable-
2017, sir.
Honourable Member, the operational date of the law is February the 1st.
Sir,
the law
comes
itself-
into order February 1st.
Honourable Member, the law itself comes into force after the 40th day.
No, sir.
That is what the standing orders say, Honourable Member. You may disagree with that, but that is what it says. It is the only reason why you sought from the Speaker his authorization, concurrence, or whatever word you wish. You proposed to the Speaker an earlier date for a hearing. That could be the only reason, and that is the only reason. And so clearly, you could not have it both ways. If it is valid, if it comes into effect on the 40th day, with the operational date being the 1st of February, that time is over. If you wish to discuss what you have here, you may proceed. But anything else, the Speaker does not understand it that way, and you know it is not that way, and I will not permit it that way.
Mr. Speaker, could you please advise me? There's an order paper that has notice paper number 82, which has come from the Parliament Office. I didn't write this. This was produced and circulated on Tuesday last, in which the amended motion as authorized by Parliament Office in my name is on the order paper exactly word for word. I am therefore, sir, doing my preamble to discuss the motion which says there's this VAT amendment, it was put on such and such a date, it was put in the Parliament on December 20th, and whereas the imposition of these amendments are likely to have an unfavorable effect on the people of Guyana and the economy, a sentence you amended, sir. and that it be resolved. We call on the
Forget whatever
government
it
to
is.
repeal, and we call on the government to restore.
I remember when you are through saying that, you are saying to me that you have been authorized by this House, by the Speaker, to ignore the provisions of the standing orders in relation to when action can no longer be taken on a motion. Is that?
Mr.
I remember
Mr. Speaker.
each person will have its turn, but we will not have it like that.
Mr. Speaker,
We will not have it like that.
Mr. Speaker,
Mr. Shearer, let us be clear. You are discussing this motion. You're not seeking to interfere with the motion, the motion which its 40th day has expired. That is what you are doing.
Mr.
So
Speaker.
please proceed.
Yes, I'm discussing the motion, and the motion has to do with the amendment, so I'm kind of confused. But anyway, sir, I'll try my best to comply with you. I will try my best, sir. The issue that this House must debate is the issue to do with the impact of the imposition, as according to my motion, of these amendments are likely to have an unfavorable effect on the people and the economy of this country. So that's my motion. Yes. And I will debate it, sir.
Proceed.
Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, on a point of order, please.
Oh, Lord.
Remember, go ahead.
Yes, please. Sir,
Soon order.
lest this honorable House, sir, be led astray. Standing order 70 is very clear.
Honourable member, we must observe the rules, which are to state the standing order,
Standing order 48.
and then to state what the problem is, and then to leave it with the Speaker.
Yes, please, standing order 48, Mr. Speaker. And, Mr. Speaker, it deals with the application of standing order 70. Standing order 70 deals with a negative resolution. And it says quite clearly that if you wish to challenge it, you must do so within 21 days. That was
This is not
done.
what the motion's about.
But then the debate must occur before the expiration of 40 days. So once the 40 days expire, there's no debate. And the other thing with the law on negative resolution, the moment the negative resolution, the moment the subsidiary legislation is laid in the House, it becomes law. It is law immediately, unless it is annulled. And it has not been annulled.
I thank the honourable member
Yes.
for his observation.
So it would be useless
you.
to negotiate something that has been overtaken by
Honourable
time.
member, Mr. Shearer, you are continuing your...
Yes,
Please
I
proceed.
believe, Mr. Speaker, I just want to be very clear that whatever law is passed in this country, one can repeal, annul, reverse, amend, and it's the power of this House to do that. And any member of Parliament of this House to do that, sir. So once something is approved, it does and becomes law, doesn't mean it's unamendable in the future. But, sir, the issue, sir, of... We are hoping, sir, that the government, at some point, if not recently, not today, will reconsider this reckless decision to remove essential items from zero rated to exempt, and have a heart for the people of this country, and to do what we are calling for in this motion, to repeal the order and reinstate the previously existing orders reflected in the revised VAT Act posted on the GRA website, which includes all the zero-rated items as of 2008. Mr. Speaker, there are problems with the order for the ordinary man and woman to read it and to comprehend exactly what they have to pay. And it has taken quite a bit of work on my part, personally, to be able to go through in detail the actual amendments and what will be the impact. Sir, the laws of Guyana, revised edition 208, as I said, was downloaded from the GRA website. And it has been very helpful in guiding the Guyanese population, at least me, in terms of ascertaining what is actually being changed. It is only after 1 month and on the eve of this motion being debated that we noticed advertisements in the newspapers explaining to the Guyanese people what these amendments and what these zero-rated and exempt matters what impact they would have. But sir, if we look at the actual, one cannot debate the motion and talk about unfavorable items unless we talk about what is zero-rated and what is exempt. And one of the issues, sir, is that for many people, what is exempt and what is zero-rated? And what does that mean for the consumer in Guyana, the producer, the businessman, the farmer? First of all, the VAT Act itself talks about Section 17 deals with and states that where for this section a supply of goods or services will be charged with tax under Section 91A, the supply is charged with tax at the rate of 0% if it is specified in paragraph 2 of Schedule 1. So Schedule 1 deals with zero-rated, and Schedule 2, which is covered by Section 18, deals with what is called exempt. Fundamentally for our people, it means that if an item has been put zero, called zero, that the producer, manufacturer, importer does not pay any VAT on it. If an item is exempt, then the producer, importer, manufacturer, and so on, farmer, pays VAT on this. And so this was explained in the discussions in the Parliament before the debate began, even on the budget, where the private sector was very clear in the concerns that what this would have on the people. And so, for example, the Private Sector Commission put out a statement that was published in the Starbuck News. Public Service urges government to rethink harmful VAT proposals, December 2nd, 2016. And this is what they have to say. By eliminating the zero-rated list, VAT refunds, I'm quoting from the article, and it's quoting from Mr. Prasad, I think it's Ramesh Prasad of the PSC. VAT refunds only apply to taxable supplies, not exempted supplies. So where you can claim a refund of VAT paid on zero-rated items, you cannot do the same for items which are exempt. If you're a provider of a totally zero-rated product like education, you would have been able to claim all of your input VAT from government. If you're a mixed supplier, your refund was prorated based on the proportion of items which are taxable and non-taxable. And therefore, it is very clear that if you move items from zero to exempt, they are no longer zero-rated, and therefore VAT is charged, and the consumer, down the line, will pay the consequences. And there are a number of quotes in the same article from GT&T, the flour company, for example, the National Milling Company, Namilco, and so on, talking about the impact that these VATable items will now have, these exempt items will now have. So when one looks at the actual order, and I cannot speak without going back to the order, and I believe there's a freedom of expression in this House to be able to talk about the order. If it is so, it's law, then I can talk about it. If it's not law, I thought I could talk about it. However, the issue of the structure of it, regrettably, I believe the government, in trying to cushion the impact of taking the majority of items that were zero-rated up to 2008, essential items, goods and services, they then realized that they'd really emptied out the coffers in terms of the list of zero-rated items. So what they did, they thought rather cleverly, was to put back in some items that were originally zero-rated in 2006 and 7 and 8, which were never taken out, and put them back in the order as if it's new, fresh start. And in fact, they were always there. And so, we already have, let me give you some examples of this wonderful drafting law that now we have to abide by in this country. And that is that it talks about you know, a number of areas. The clause 2, for example, talking about consumable items and so on, and I could read parts of it, but it's already there. You have other sections, for example, that the exporter service, which I see in the ads being put out, and they're talking about aircraft and reconditioning and all these issues that are now zero rated. These were here all before in section 2H of the VAT schedule going back to 208. The same thing to do with the section of exporter goods. Then we have other areas, for example, to do with supply of servicing, the filing, prosecution, granting, maintenance, transfer, etc., including incidental services necessary for the supply of services, and the obligation to refrain from pursuing or exercising in whole or part any intellectual property. This was a section on intellectual property. This is now put in as if it's zero rated for the first time. The problem is it's there. It's there in the downloadable version of from GRA as the revised version of the VAT Act as of 2008. So all the orders that were brought in 206, 207, 208 post the VAT Act coming into order was incorporated into the Act, revised, and in a very helpful manner put on the website so you didn't have to go through many different orders. So these are repeated as if it's brand new. And you know what they say, brand new is secondhand, because they were there all the time. And we can go on. There are sections to do with the importation of raw materials, which will be subsequently exported by a taxable person who, to the satisfaction of the Commissioner, exports at least 50% of all his products. And it's claimed here it's zero rated. But it's already in clause 2, Y of the VAT Schedule 1 in the GRA version in the website. And I could go on over and over. There are many examples of this in the section that deals with zero rated. And then we come to now the exempted section. These are goods that are now being exempted. And this is where it becomes really interesting. If we look at food items, all the food items that were formerly zero rated have been moved to exempt. And we can quote the sections. They're in the VAT Act Schedule 2, under sections 2 and section 2A. They're all there. So this is taking important items that our people need to live. Rice, sugar, cooking oil, nestum, jerba, fresh fruits, split peas, unprocessed wheat, flour of all types, barley, plantain flour, casreep, etc., etc. So that all these items that were formerly zero rated have become exempted. And I know that I just heard the honourable member talk about diabetes. Well, let's go to the health one. Let's go to see how this government feels about health issues. Let's go to that, because thank you, Mr. Jordan, for giving me the entree. The VAT Act and the schedules provided for under Section 2, for example, DD, that medical supplies, that is drugs, prescription, this is what it formerly said, a supply of medical services and prescription drugs to the extent provided in regulations issued by the Minister and over-the-counter drugs, but not including vitamins, tonics, energy drinks, food supplements, and similar products and supplements for promoting health and well-being. So, the new amendments that are now, I understand, in force is that prescription drugs remain zero-rated, but for some strange reason, the government decided to select and identify what were the over-the-counter drugs, OTC drugs, as they're called. So all of a sudden, instead of having an act that says OTC and prescription drugs, it ends up being that you have now determined which OTC drugs are zero rated. And this seems to be inexplicable. Because one question one must ask is, how did the list come about? So you got things for tummy aches and coughs and gas and indigestion and stuff like that, and oral rehydration. You got those items. How did the government come up with this list? Was it with consultation with the Ministry of Public Health in terms of what are the essential and most commonly used OTC drugs? Or did someone, just as my friend over there, say, well, we're dealing with diabetes and maybe he knows a little bit about it and he's put in certain things into this? Was there consultation with the Ministry of Public Health and the National Formulary Committee on essential drugs that decides what are the most commonly used drugs in Guyana, the ones in most demand, and which most pharmacies bring for the people of our country? So all of a sudden, the government is now playing a nanny culture, deciding which of the OTCs you can have. Furthermore, it goes on to select certain aspects for diabetes. But these were items already zero rated, you've now moved them to exempt. So if you're really concerned about non-communicable diseases, you're really concerned about diabetics, why didn't you leave this as zero rated? Why would you move it to exempt? The same thing to do with insulin syringes, with needles and devices. Then you've also moved spectacles that were zero rated and moved them into exempt. You've moved crutches, which were zero rated, into exempt. You've left out two that were zero rated previously, and that was wheelchairs and hearing aids. So that, because now they're eliminated from the zero list, they're not put on the exempt list, therefore they're VATable. They're VATable. And in what sensible, caring government would do this? You had a given thing, you had all these issues that were able to provide. You know, Winston Churchill said that the best asset of a nation is the health of its people. The health of its people is its best asset. And yet this government has decided to take the Schedule 1 of zero-rated items and tinker with them. Tinker with them. So we're not talking here about food supplements. We're not talking about energy drinks. We're talking about basic supplies of over-the-counter drinks and drugs, that can be used by people of this country. And therefore the cost of these items are going to go up. Inexplicable. In what mind would do this to our people? But let's go on, because it gets worse. And I must say too, that when we go further in it, in the original budget, medical services and everything was supposed to be exempted. And I see that because of a lot of noise that was made, that in the Act it was modified. And so medical and dental services are now exempt. They were zero rated before. But funnily enough, you've left out veterinary services. So in a country that's agriculture based, a country that depends on livestock production, you have decided that veterinary services are now to be VATable. You know, and by the way, I just found out something just now on the way here. I'll come back to my motion. But did you know that when you buy the $500 card, or any card for the parking meters, it's VATable? And so when you pay $500, you have to add on $80 for VAT. And when you then put your card in the machine, it then starts deducting the VAT again. So that when you're telling people it's $50 for 15 minutes, it's $50 for 15 minutes plus VAT. You didn't tell anybody that in the budget debate. You didn't tell anybody that. But anyway, it's VAT and VAT and VAT everywhere, sir. By the way, funeral service was zero rated. My God, you can't even let the dead live in peace? You now got to put the VAT on the dead? Funeral services were zero rated. You have now made it exempted. Human remains. Now, I have a feeling what you mean by human remains because it was in the order all the time. It was zero rated. And I guess it meant that people who died overseas or people moving bodies that have to be used for medical purposes and or were injured elsewhere and had to be brought back into Guyana, that they weren't VATable. They were zero rated. Well, you know, now you've got to pay. These are exempted, and therefore whoever's handling these matters will now pay VAT on them, and of course those services will go on. So don't be surprised that the funeral services who offer services in this country, you will find your bill if you have to, unfortunately, bury or take care of a loved one who has passed, that your bill will be higher because VAT is now going to be put on these services. And the funeral service cannot go to Minister of Finance and ask for a refund because it's exempted. If it was zero rated, he could. If it's exempt, he can't. So funeral services, you know, we have to keep our costs under control. Mr. Speaker, education, the most glaring, horrific thing with the zero rating and the movement from zero rating to exempt is in the education. What kind of government? In the original schedule, it just says the supply of education services and educational materials. The government has decided to identify everything. Imagine children's drawing books, story books, coloring books, recipe books, religious books. I don't know if the religious leaders know that the religious books that come under education are all going to be exempt and not zero rated anymore. Exercise books, educational charts. You've gone to the point of erasers, chalk, handheld pencils, sharpeners. I mean, seriously? What are you doing to the poor people of this country? What are you doing to the children of this country? You're the ones complaining that, you know, we don't have good quality education. We don't have enough teachers. We don't have enough this. We don't have enough that. And then you impose, look at this list. It's one whole page where someone, I'm trying to understand the mindset of what kind of human being sits down and puts down all these items that children of our country need to use in the classroom, what the teachers need to use in the classroom, what students going to Cyril Potter and UG and GTIC have to use. Why would you do that to our people? Everything has been put exempt. Imagine you couldn't even give a eraser. You couldn't let children get an eraser without having to leave it zero rated. All the supplies. Even for those who are doing, you know, we're talking about improving science in this school. All the jars, bottles, and stuff to go with science are now also exempt. Lunch kits, lunch packs, lunch bags, geometry sets, and we're talking about making math better for our children. And you go and move the children's geometry sets from zero to exempt. As I said, this is the thinking of something that is terribly, terribly sick in this country. But Mr. Speaker, when we go now to the agriculture area, you know, I mean, again, I go back. This is a country that is based on agriculture, primary based. You have now decided that some things will be exempt. So all the paddy, the fertilizers, fish hooks, even the ice for fishing purposes is now exempt. It's now zero rated. Because of course you put VAT on water. Water becomes ice. And therefore now you're going to charge VAT on ice. So these are people, these are fishermen using these, some of these. All the things to do with the fishermen. All the things of the fishermen. Fish hooks, fishing floats, cotton, all these things. I don't even know some of them well myself. Weeders, cultivators, all these things that ordinary people use to make a living. Make a living, an honest living. And so, all of this is going to impact on the consumers. It's going to impact on the producers. It's going to impact on everyone. And so, And all of these issues that I'm calling out were originally zero rated. Mr. Speaker, if we look at, and as I said, veterinary services are VATable. Then let's go to, one of the things that we talk about in our country is about technology, the digital age. And one of the things we consciously did when we were in government was remove all the cost involved with people being able to access computers and parts and everything else like that. And so in the VAT Act, there's quite a, if you go to, again, the VAT Act under Schedule 1, the original 2JJ, and it goes in supply of computers, monitors, hardware, printers, mouse, keyboards, all internal components of CPUs, including cabinet, sound cards, internal power supply processors, memories, internal input, output, routers, switches, and hubs, and toner cartridges and ink cartridges. So you have several, 1, 2, 3, 4, you have 8 listed categories under supply of computers and computer hardware and software that was zero rated. Look what they've done. Look what they do. All it says, exempted for the purposes of Section 80 are a supply of computers, computer accessories, notebooks, laptops, and printers for personal use. So the issues that were put under this, which included cartridges and ink and floppies and the power switches and all sorts of parts, are gone. Those are now VATable. And we're talking about wanting to make our country more modern and to have all these and computer literate. And so you're talking about, you say you're going to give laptops to schools. By the way, what happened to the 9,000 laptops that came in you were going to give the teachers? That was 2016. Where have they gone? But anyway, you can answer that another time. And that is that, where did they go? But anyway, whatever you give the schools, for example, you have to be able to have maintenance, you have to upgrade and so on. And this makes no provision for that. Mr. Speaker, just a side thing on the cars, on the vehicles. When we come to the part that motor vehicles are exempt for the purposes of Section 18, and it talks about all-terrain vehicles for the use in the mining industry and by 2 showers from Amerindian communities approved by the Commissioner. Now in 2016, this was amended to allow for the Amerindian communities. It is now taken away. So it was zero rated, now it's exempt. So the miners and the 2 showers from the Amerindian communities will have to now pay a higher price for the ATVs. But there's a new thing, because all these things I'm talking about, sir, are those that were originally zero rated. And so I was looking for the new things, the fresh start. Where did it come in? And I found it, by George, I found it. Under motor vehicles, you have, George Norton, yes. Motor vehicles imported by and for the use of the President, and motor vehicles imported by and for the use of the Prime Minister. Now that was really interesting, because that was really new, fresh start. And so I had to scratch my head, because I thought, I thought presidents, when you buy cars for presidents' use, there are all sorts of things that they don't pay, because it's the government buying it for the president. But then I saw the word buy. So, motor vehicles imported by or for. So, you didn't see it? No, I had to look twice. No. So when I saw it first, I said, well, that's normal. Presidents have, you gotta buy the cars for the president, you gotta buy cars for the prime minister. I mean, what is this? And then I said, oh, shoot. And it's true what they say. One little word, one tiny word called buy. Or is a big word now. That buy suddenly changes the meaning of this amendment. So, motor vehicles imported by or for the use of the President, motor vehicles imported by or for the use of the Prime Minister. Now, the Prime Minister one confused me even more, Because the Prime Minister, as a parliamentarian, gets duty-free concessions. So why do they have to have this special arrangement put into the VAT Act? So that was interesting, and we'll monitor that. But these were the two new things. Two new things in the VAT Act. Well, let's go on. We're looking for new things. The fresh approach. Mr. Speaker, the issues to do with renewable energy and so forth. When the sections that deal with supply of machinery and equipment for generating electricity from renewable sources, solar, this is new. They brought in the customs, they brought in the regulations of that, and now it's in the order. But you know what the original one was? The original zero-rated item, which I thought was great, and I was saving up my money for, but now I have to change my mind, because it's pointed out that what we were trying to do then was to encourage people to look at zero-rate solar systems for the household. And so what we did, we had, for example, zero-rated items that were for solar, alternative energy, for households. What the government has done is remove that section with households completely. Completely. And we now have a supply of machinery or equipment for generating electricity for renewable sources, including solar panels, solar lamps, etc., wind turbines, and energy-efficient lighting. So the specific thing about giving concessions for households, and in the case of Amerindian communities where we brought in the household solar panels, they did not pay any VAT on that at all. So now we saw these changes being made in the bills to accommodate the wind farm and the solar and so on. And so we understand what you're doing. We don't agree with what you're doing because we think it's against the law, against the procurement laws. But you are now enshrining it in this and eliminating the household people who, like me, would have thought I could put up a couple of solar panels and I won't have to pay GPL. And really now with the 14%, I really would wish I'd done it before, because my electricity bill is going to be out of control. And then, sir, sports gear. Sports gear, you're talking about, this is when they say you cut your nose to spite your face. All of this, all these amendments that you brought in is cutting your nose to spite your face. You talk about crime. You talk about youth crime. You talk about youth violence. And the sports zero rating of sports gear and sports issues, you have now changed. And so, even, for example, you now want to remove what was zero rating for cups and medals and stuff like that sportsmen will get. I mean, this is a level of inanity. I mean, it's banal. It's banal. But let's go to the mining sector, because the mining sector, the GGDMA have publicly called, and they put out statements months ago in December, appealing for the budget to be amended and the VAT and everything else. And up to recently, they've been appealing. In fact, they have written to the president, appealing to meet with him. There's no reply as yet. But in Starbuck News, budget has no good news for miners. GGDMA and GMW, Guyanese Gold and Diamond Miners Association and Guyana Women Miners Organization, that they have pointed out in the statement that was published on December 2nd, 2016, that they say the government has forecasted a 35% growth in the sector in 2016. Careful examination will show that there has been a slowdown in the local small and medium-scale operations. This is because of the hardships that the sector face. Several concessions were removed from the industry. Despite the minister's utterances, none of these have been returned. We cannot do more for less. In 2016, VAT was required on heavy-duty vehicles, and a phased removal of all other concessions was implemented. We cannot do more for less. This is what the miners are saying. Yet, the 2016 economy depended on what happened in gold to shore up this economy. And yet you treat this sector with such disdain. You're imposing more and more restrictions, more and more difficulties on the miners, and you don't even want to meet with them. There are also rather ludicrous things in the document. Locally produced sheets and pillowcases and mosquito nets and stuff were all zero rated. And for some strange reason, these have all been hived off at the, like a wand. Well, let's just take these sections out and chunk them over. So women in this country who make these things, and some of the manufacturers, the garment manufacturers, who make sheets and mosquito nets and such like, will all have to be paying, will all now have to pay VAT, and these items are now exempt. Why would you do that to these cottage industries and some of these small businesses? Is incomprehensible. The minister, in his closing speech at the end of the debate on December 9th, quoted from recommendations of the CARTAC Group and the Tax Reform Committee to justify this battery of tax measures in the 2017 budget. However, no one has seen these reports and recommendations. And in fact, the minister quoted and made a number of recommendations from these bodies. A number of the recommendations have not been put in here, but nevertheless, the minister was using them to support the view that VAT had to be imposed and these other taxes had to be imposed, and using the fact that these were consultancies and studies and the Tax Reform Committee. But in fact, when you read the minister's speech once again, you discover that in fact, the Tax Reform Committee had a slightly different take on things. And they did not talk about removing the zero items. They talked about an incremental shift, but they didn't talk about one swell swoop. The problem, though, however, is I got a distinct impression from listening to the minister's responses during the 2017 budget and the bills that arose out of these budgets, that, and I'm saying this as a politician and a former member of government and so forth, that budgets are not technical affairs. They're not technical, and studies and consultancies may be technical. Ultimately, it is the government from the political realm that makes the decision of whether something's good or bad for their people. And so we have had all sorts of consultancies and studies when we were in government. I remember, and my leader opposition will remember a million times better than I could, the kind of pressure we came under to do with regulation of the banks and a number of issues that we were told to do. Had we done those issues, when the 2008 economic and financial crisis came, we would have been in trouble, like many of our Caribbean sisters in the region. And so our national sovereignty, our national interests do have to come into the decision-making process. It cannot be good enough in this parliament to say, well, CARTAC recommended and the Tax Reform Committee recommended. But by the way, if that is so though, I have to raise another issue. How is it that the Commission of Inquiry on Gaisuco that recommended do not close any estates? How come that advice wasn't taken? And yet, one uses conveniently what suits you, and not what necessarily suits the country. Mr. Speaker, in 2016, 143 new taxes plus 57 tax measures in 2017 were imposed on this economy, an economy which was in trouble when people are hurting and catching hell. And small, medium, and large businesses are going down, down, down. Rice is down, sugar is down, bauxite is down, gold will go down, housing is down, entertainment is down. And then, lo and behold, Mr. Speaker, we now wake up after budget passed on December 21st, and we find fuel price gone up. That was never raised in the budget debate.
I remember, Mr. Shearer.
Yes, sir.
You were speaking for 40 minutes.
Thank you. I'm wrapping up. So, Mr. Speaker, there have been other bills other impositions of the Demerara Bridge and so forth. I'll come back to that in my closing, and other issues. But, sir, this motion is critical, and we appeal to the government. We appeal to the government in the best interest of our people. in the best interest of our people, repeal the VAT order number 18 and reinstate all the items that were zero rated previously in Schedule 1 of the VAT Act. Thank you, sir.
I thank the honourable member for her statement.